On this week's show, a loss at Georgia State assures the Eagles of a losing season and no postseason. We talk with head coach Tyson Summers about the current state of the Eagle football program and update how things are going for men's and women's basketball. All that and more as we welcome you inside the Eagles Nest.
White. Eagles came to fight, it's that blue. White. Eagles came to fight, it's that blue.
And welcome inside the Eagles Nest. I'm your host, Josh Aubrey, being joined by Mike Anthony, sports editor and Georgia Southern beat writer for the Statesboro Herald. And Mike, stop me if you've heard this one again. Just one week after another, it just seems like Georgia Southern digs a hole, comes back, looks close, and then they give up a play. And then you look up at the scoreboard and they've lost. They've lost 7 of their last 8. Looked like a fairly good start to the season. You're 3-0 to start things off. Hadn't been 3-0 in quite a while. And then the wheels kind of fall off. It also seems like it's been Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong has been going wrong for the Eagles, who right now, the fans, the coaches, the players, everybody's pretty frustrated with the way things are going. And Mike has all the answers for us right here. Okay. Well, maybe you can pontificate a bit about the Eagles season as well, as they have their only real off week of the season, which maybe that's another reason for some of the problems that they've had this year.
Right. Well, as you said, off to a good start at 3-0, but even then there were some questions about the way things were looking. The biggest thing has been explosiveness. The offense, which has led the nation in rushing for the past 2 seasons, it never quite got there, other than maybe a few big plays against Savannah State. Those holes weren't opening. Guys weren't getting to the edge. The big plays weren't there. You weren't getting big leads on opponents. Instead, it was a Georgia Southern defense that played very well for the first couple of games, starting to have to play more and more series on the field, not getting a lot of rest. Then they start to give up the big plays while the offense still spinning its wheels. And it seems like as the season's gone on, the creativity, the effectiveness of the offense, it hasn't matured. It's only gone downhill. Injuries haven't helped that. But by the end of the season, this Georgia Southern offense, once feared by everybody, looks like a team where everybody knows exactly what they're going to get, and they're doing a good job of stopping it.
And on the flip side, it seemed like the defense at stages in the season was a stalwart, and it looked like that was going to be what would help Georgia Southern in their offensive issues to be able to maybe work it out while the defense was still solid. And I think we all went into the season thinking this would probably be arguably the best defense Georgia Southern's ever had. The front 7 at least were all really good, and they were all back. We knew there were some question marks in the secondary, but we also knew we had some talented guys there to try to fill the roles. And the defense, the same defense that we all thought was pretty solid, gives up 20 points to a team that barely scored 20 points much this year in Georgia State. They gave up 28 points in the second quarter against Ole Miss. They've given up points in bunches, and I think that's another thing that has people worried, because if you could look to some aspect of the team other than Younghoe Koo for some positives, you might think, okay, we're going to be all right.
Well, one of the sad things is I think I'm going to be right on a prediction I made at the beginning of the year. I made the bold prediction that the Georgia Southern defense could easily end up this season ranked higher nationally than the offense. That might end up being true, but not for any good reasons. As you said, when things have gone bad for the defense, they've gone bad in a hurry. 20-point quarters, 28-point quarters, really digging the offense a hole that it's proven time and time again it can't really dig itself out of. And I think that at this point, it's just, one bad thing leading to the other, or one side worrying about what the other's doing. At times, it seems like the defense is playing very, very cautiously, a bend don't break, because they know they can't give up too many points, when in reality, with all the talent, with all the experience this team has, I think that they were set up better to be aggressive. You saw them be aggressive in the first couple of games. Then when it turned out that the offense wasn't going to be giving them a lot to work with, you saw this defense stop being aggressive, get on its heels. That's when talented teams can make big plays on you.
Well, we got to deal with the elephant in the room, and that is the questions of Tyson Summers and his future and what's going on right now. And the fans obviously pretty upset. Both of us had a chance to talk with head coach Tyson Summers as the team gets ready to have an off week for Thanksgiving. We're going to show a portion of that, but what did you get as your take from interviewing Coach this past weekend?
Well, you've kind of seen Coach Summers change as the years gone along. Early on, I think that he had all the confidence in the world, despite maybe some warning signs early. He thought, there's a process to it. He's going to run what he wants to run. He had confidence that it was going to work. And as the season's gone on, I think that you've seen him start to realize that maybe those problems were bigger than first anticipated. And now, as we mentioned before, with injuries compounding, bad luck left and right, and just overall ineffectiveness, I would say that he doesn't come off as defeated, but he does come off as resigned to the fact that whatever it was this year just didn't work. He knows that in order for things to get better, some big changes are going to have to take place, and that's not for us to say if that means names are changing in the coaching ranks, but something definitely has gone wrong with Georgia Southern on both offense and defense. They've got a few months before signing day and then spring practice, and if things are going to turn around, it needs to turn around then in that span coming up rather than next September.
On top of everything else, you had a couple weeks ago the issues with the team not going to do the alma mater because of some issues that happened on the field and some miscommunication. Then you get into the issues that Tyson Summers has had this week with social media and some Twitter. And because of all those things, he was a little more open to speaking to the media. We had a chance to talk with him, and here's a little bit of that.
I think the big thing, obviously going in this week and what we want to be able to do versus Troy is send these seniors out on the right note. We certainly feel like as this game comes and our seniors are coming and what they've been able to do for our institution and for our program the last couple of years, we want to be able to finish this thing the right way. It's another football game, it's another conference game, but it's an important game because of that group of seniors. From a fan base standpoint, I think that everybody needs to know that we're working as hard as we can possibly work, and we haven't had the results that we wanted to from a win-loss standpoint. And I certainly understand everybody's frustration, and I'm certainly as frustrated as anybody. But the thing that I would want everybody to know is that with us and what we're trying to do here and what we're trying to make sure that we are putting into our players in all three phases, in football, in academics, and making an impact in their lives, we're doing those things. I really do feel like, and I know for me and for our staff and everything that we do, we're going to continue to build off the recruits that we had last year, continue to build off the players that we have in place right now, and we are going to be someone that is going to be hard to be reckoned with in the future. And I understand everybody's frustration, and I have certainly said it a number of times. Point your frustration at me, and I've got to be able to be the one to be able to handle those things and to be accountable for them, and I promise you I more than recognize them, and we've got to be able to sit there and learn from them and move on, and at the end of the day, that's what we're going to continue to do this week in our preparation versus Troy. As we move forward, our preparation into recruiting and going into this off-season with a great off-season mindset, with everything that we do from a work habit standpoint, from an academic standpoint, and get this place to exactly where it's been for a long time, and the reason that I care so much and want to be here so much because of the winning and because of the traditions that are there, and that's what I would try to send from a message standpoint. There's never going to be a perfect scenario, and there's never going to be a perfect first year. It's been challenging, but I promise you with everything that I've got that nobody's going to be willing to work harder at it and be able to be someone that can get these things corrected and fixed and be able to be where they want to be for a long, long time, and that's me, and that's the staff, and that's right here, and so that's what we're looking forward to.
I know social media can be a positive, it can be a negative. I know that that's something that as an assistant coach you've probably dealt a little bit with, but now as a head coach it's really coming at you hard.
Sure.
How are you handling the social media aspect of your job?
Sure. Well, and social media is such a big thing as it reverts to communication, and again, what winds up happening to you in a lot of it is it becomes hard. From a fan base standpoint, obviously, like I've said a number of times, I want any amount of frustration or negativity, I want that pointed at me. I don't want it pointed at our players. And I've certainly made that very, very aware as a number of times that I've sat there and spoken on it and spoken out on it. I think the big thing is, and again, really mistake on my part. You know, we went through the other day and had a situation where, again, recruiting, it affects our recruits. Social media, whether you like it or not, it does. It affects our recruits and what they think and how they view things. And so, you know, trying to protect some of those things, you know, the other day I and trying to look at it from a recruiting standpoint, really made a poor decision. You know, was not trying to be in a situation at all where I was trying to be rude to our fan base. Was really in a position where I was trying to protect our what we were doing from a recruiting standpoint. We've got a fantastic class going, and again are doing a good job with all those guys and everything that's happening. And again, I've got to do a better job of looking 3 and 4 question marks down the road when it comes to social media, because it can be, it's a broad-based thing and people can have different opinions, and sometimes things that were intended one way aren't taken that way. And I've got to do a better job of being able to think 3 steps ahead on some of it, and being able to control it.
You've got another week. The guys, for the most part, are all gone. Mm-hmm. Is that a good thing as you get ready for Troy?
Well, I think it's just so late. It's really our first true open week of the season, you know, and typically, you know, you go through and our week was kind of counted with the Arkansas State game was counted as one of those weeks, but it didn't necessarily give us an opportunity to let those guys get home for the weekend and some of those things. So this is an opportunity for them to take you know, really 3.5, 4 days here and regroup, refresh. It's going to help us tremendously, again, from trying to get some of the injuries back and some of the guys feeling a little bit better. You know, but it gives us the opportunity to do those things with our football team. We've practiced the last 2 days since the Georgia State game. We'll come back and have those guys ready to go again Friday afternoon, and we'll get some good extra time to be able to work on Troy. So I think it does come at a good time. You wish it had come earlier, you know, and amidst some of these injuries and amidst some of this, you know, really challenging schedule with the amount of road games that we've played, to kind of take a deep breath. And we haven't had that. And this is, anytime you get an opportunity to, it's a positive one. It's the first time I've ever had Thanksgiving off. And so I'm, you know, looking forward to having a day where I can spend it with my family as well.
The busiest travel days of the year will soon be here. What better way to arrive at Grandma's house, or any house, than in a beautiful new vehicle from Franklin Chevrolet in Statesboro. The new models are a feast for the eyes and as comfortable as mashed potatoes and apple pie. And comfortable is the way you feel each and every time you visit our dealership. Come in and take advantage of special holiday savings at Franklin Chevy. You'll drive home satisfied.
Well, football, not the only thing going on. Of course, basketball is going on as well. Georgia Southern in the midst of the Savannah tournament, which takes them to Akron, which takes them to Mercer, which takes them to Savannah. This weekend, they're going to be playing at 2:30 on Friday and Saturday. The women still on the road this weekend, and then they'll return next Tuesday to play at home. But your thoughts on the men's and women's basketball teams right now?
So far, a little bit of a stumble for the men's basketball team. A great start against NC State, putting a scare into a good ACC team, but in that game, they let a 6-point lead slip away in the latter minutes of the second half. They get a big win against Coastal Georgia, but then against Mercer, the same thing happens. This is a very good Mercer team, a team probably favored to represent its conference in the tournament at the end of the season, but Georgia Southern able to jump out in front, control vast majorities of that game, but a couple of big runs, one in the first half and then one again with the Eagles leading in the second half. A big run for Mercer allows them to dominate the final 4 or 5 minutes of the game. So the Eagles drop to 1-2. Overall, I've liked what I've seen. A lot of talent on this team, a lot more cohesion with the team after they all learned to play with each other last year. All of them returning now this year. As for the Georgia Southern ladies, they fall to Jacksonville State. They're now 2-2 on the season. A tough one against an SEC team in Alabama, but again, they seem to be working a little bit better together. The points are there. I think that when they get into Sun Belt play, a little bit more of a competitive Eagle squad this year.
All right, well, that'll wrap it up for now. For Mike Anthony, I'm Josh Aubrey. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again next week.